Hello and welcome. We are Aaron and Steve of Superabound.
Happy to be here. I'm the silent partner. I'm just going to sit here and look.
No, we're going to have discussions. I'm just checking out my shirt. Evolve or repeat.
Deep. That's some deep shit, folks. It's deep.
This is from the Gloom label, who's a local designer. We have this as a print in our workout area, and when they offered it as a sweatshirt, I bought it. So I'm rocking a hoodie. I never wear a hoodie at work, but evolve or repeat. That's what we're doing today.
Right? We usually go for more of a business casual upscale vibe for our coaching work, but here we are just having a little bit more fun.
More fun, and I also love to just test things out. I like my witchy vibe too. We're in our witchy space, our ritual and meditation room. We host yoga retreats here, coaching retreats in this space. It's live with plants and some yoga mats. So welcome. Not a lot of people get to see this space, and we're really happy that you're here. And we are going to dive right in today to a couple of really important topics.
So we're going to start with the question of what does it cost you when you make slow decisions? What is the cost of slow decisions, open loops in your mind, things that are unsettled? A lot of people live this way. They open up a loop, they have a decision to make, and they just kind of let it sit, think about it, play with it, come back to it, forget about it, remember about it, come back to it. And it seems like there's nothing wrong with that, and nothing is happening as a result, but things are happening.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because there may be something culturally, at least the way I grew up, where it was considered really smart to take a long time to think about things, to really think things through and make pros and con lists and be quote unquote thoughtful about your decisions, especially when it comes to something big. Interestingly, as coaches and as a married couple, that has never been our approach. We are not slow decision makers. And I've gotten a little heat from that from time to time from people.
From yourself?
I just don't think it totally matters. I mean, one example is we got engaged 9 months after meeting, about there. We flipped a coin to decide where we were going to live. We bought the first condo we looked at. We bought one of the first houses that we looked at. We bought the first car we test drove.
We had a baby after being married for what?
Couple
7
seconds.
Few months.
I mean, I was pregnant in our second wedding. I was very pregnant. I was 8 months pregnant already.
We got married in September, and then we had the big party in July, and Erin was already present.
I was
already pregnant by the party.
Way pregnant. So pregnant. So pregnant in the summer. And I think the thing is, there's a lot of value that's put on making thoughtful, smart decisions, weighing things, grappling with things. But if you are a person who's in tune with your big vision of what you want in your life, and you are checking in regularly with your gut or your intuition or your instincts, however you sort of like to play with that concept, it doesn't have to take a lot of time. Grappling with decisions is the thing that takes a lot of time. A decision is made instantly, and then you decide whether you're actually going to follow through with it or not. And I noticed that when I'm working with people and we're learning, we have a program called Grow Smooth, and one of the sections of that program is really teaching you how to make decisions that are in line with your greater vision and your personal and business values. The thing I notice is, as we're teaching people to do that, what we come up against is there's this belief out there that there's such a thing as a right decision and a wrong decision. And I realized after working with a lot of people, I don't think I have that as a default setting.
It's a profound point. Like, just pause for a moment and think to yourself, with whatever decision's on your plate, do you think there is a right choice or a wrong choice? Because if you think there's a possibility of, quote, getting it right, then you're going to be slower about it. You're going to, not that consulting more context or getting more input is a bad thing, but you're going to do it in order to avoid failure, in order to avoid making the wrong decision. And those are all frames of reference that undermine your power as a leader, even just as an effective person in the world. Where do you think we get the idea that there's a right decision from? Where does it even come from?
I think it's something that people like use against themselves after the fact. Like, it's so easy. Think about this. Like, something, maybe you've made a decision that in hindsight you wish you hadn't made. We do that. It's not as though every single thing we decide upon works out perfectly the way we want it to. But, you know, I think about a decision we made once about our business that ended up actually costing us about $25,000. In hindsight, I go back and I look at all of the things that were red flags to me then that I just sort of ignored, that I glossed over, that I didn't really think through, that I didn't bring up with you. And it would be very easy for me to say, well, I'm just an idiot. I should never have done that. It was the wrong decision and I should have known better. And I actually think that's what most people are. That conversation with yourself is the one that most people are avoiding when they take a long time to make a decision. But luckily, being in the mindset space and being a coach, I sort of have this idea that I'm always just kind of making a best guess based on what I know at the moment, my intuition, and an outcome I think I can live with. So had you asked me about that $25,000 decision, at the time, we did talk about, are we willing to lose this money if it doesn't turn out to be the greatest path? Are we willing to take a risk? And we were. Yeah. So I don't beat myself up about it because we had that conversation. And I think that maybe is something we could offer everybody here today. That is something that can help you make decisions without taking a lot of time and really agonizing over it. Is the possible upside of this worth the possible downside? That will sometimes just tell you where you are about something.
Yeah, and it'll also help you become explicit about what the potential upsides and downsides are. Oftentimes, we walk around with a dread of the downside without actually playing it out in our minds. And this is one of the things we'll do with clients, and it's very powerful to actually say, okay, let's do the worst case scenario. The whole thing goes to hell. What then? What does that look like and feel like, and what are you going to do? And just allowing yourself to go to that space where, okay, the decision went as bad as it could possibly go. No, it's not worth it. I'm not going to do it. Or what most often happens is, yeah, I could live with that. This will be okay. But letting yourself really feel it out is empowering and can remove that extra hesitation that kind of keeps you from moving forward with it.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about the worst case scenario as some brain gymnastics, if you will, what often happens is, the worst case scenario for most people is like, I die alone in a cardboard box. It's a worst case scenario for a lot of people. But the thing is, usually what people come to is like, well, but I wouldn't really let it get that way. I really wouldn't, like, if my business was tanking because of this idea that I've invested in, there would be a point where I would say, okay, we need to scale things back. We need to try something else. We need to reroute. So even the worst case scenario for many of us, if it's within our control, we're not really at risk of ever actually getting to that place as far as it's in our control. We had a moment in our relationship where we were deciding what country to live in. we'd lived in one country for a while, and we were thinking about moving back closer to my hometown. And we talked about like what that worst case scenario really is, and at what point would we rethink the decision? What information will we need to reopen it? And so this will also help you if you tend to be a person who can make a decision, but then after that decision's made, you kind of like flip-flop back and forth, and you want to change your decision right after, and you like just feel like you're in turmoil over it. Consider that there's really no way you can know if it's the right or wrong decision until you start walking down that path. And if you walk down a path that you don't really like, turns out is not for you, be really careful about how you talk to yourself about that. You don't have to, you're under no obligation to beat yourself up about trying something and learning as you go.
It's great.
What's the cost? We didn't talk about the cost.
Right? I'm like, we got to talk about the cost. The cost of being hesitant with decisions, taking longer than you need to take, is that the doors don't open up. The power of making a decision is that you actually start moving down a path. You discover things that you cannot know from your armchair. You can only know from walking the path itself. And, you know, there's all kinds of quotes about this, but like it is very much my experience that when you start moving in a direction, like when we said, okay, we're writing a book, we're using a publisher, we're going to launch it on this date, it gives you something to organize yourself around, and it gives other people something to respond to. So when you decide, this is our sales process, this is our product selection, this is our pricing plan, and you actually say, okay, this is it, let's go, then the world has something to react to. Prior to that moment, you may as well not exist, you know, from a certain perspective. Like there's nothing there for people to push against and say yes or say no to. You can't learn anything if you are in a place of waiting and seeing, getting more info, trying to be more sure. You can't get beaten up. You also can't get hugged, right? There's nothing happening on the spectrum of interaction with the world until you decide and start to move.
Yeah, and that's scary. You know, I think just to make a lot of room, can be a really scary place to be in. It's easy to create whole worlds in your head and really feel like you're doing something because you're thinking about it. But until you put pen to paper, until you launch your next class or your next product, there is nothing for the world to respond to, and you're not in any danger. Your ideas are safe. And you're safe from the opinions of other people, because it's not just the world, quote unquote, responding to you when you make a decision. It's people in your life who are probably going to give you their unsolicited advice and their opinions and tell you why this idea is wild. I cannot tell you how many people balked at how outlandish it was that we just bought a house, this dream house that we are now in, after only looking at like 2 or 3 houses. We walked into this house on a day where we were not even really looking. We weren't really planning to buy a house. We were just kind of seeing what was out there. This house went on the market. We walked into this house. My best friend, our very close friend, is our real estate agent. And she and I looked at each other and said, this is our house. And when I told people that we just went away and put it in an offer, and it was more than we probably should have or more than we could have afforded maybe at the time at that stage, people think it's wild. But then they come into our house and then they understand, and they see that it actually all unfolded beautifully. We were lucky that it did, but also we created a space for it to unfold beautifully. And that feels really good. It feels really good to say that we had a short conversation, put in an offer just to see how it would go. And now we're sitting in this space that almost didn't exist for us. If we had sat and thought about it for a long period of time, we could be sitting in some other house. Some house we don't love. I don't think that's our style, but like we could be sitting there and thinking about like, wow, we really had an amazing opportunity and we let it slip by because we weren't willing to just see if it would turn out to be right for us.
Well, and that is another one of the costs of not taking action when the moment arises, is you actually undermine your own intuition. You undermine your sense of urgency, of timing even. And so when you experience that, like, okay, that confluence of, like, this is the moment, this is the way, not to be too Mandalorian about it, but you actually kind of go, you get in the way of your own momentum, right? You kind of undercut your ability to make powerful decisions and shape your life in a profound way.
Mm-hmm. And when it doesn't work out, the house is a beautiful thing that worked out. The $25,000 investment, something that did not have a rosy ending yet. Maybe it will. But even then, there was learning there. There were lessons there. I grew a lot as a business owner, as an investor. Learned so much that could never have been learned if everything always worked out perfectly.
Yeah. So I hope this was helpful. I've had a fun time talking about decisions. It's a big part of your output as a leader, as a business owner. It's a critical skill to learn and develop. We go deep into it, like Erin mentioned, with our Grow Smooth course. So check that out. We'd love to see you in there. It's at besuperabound.com/grow for all the info. And what else?
And we put pen to paper as one of our decisions, I guess a couple years ago now. And our book is coming to life. It's being published this summer. We would love to invite you to pre-order the book and get some special bonuses if you do that pretty soon over at besuperabound.com/book. Thank you in advance for your support of this project. It is a life-changing book if you actually use it and apply it. So don't think about it. Decide you're going to get the book and actually apply the tools and the support that's in there for you, and then let us know how it goes for you.
Thanks.